Just a little over a week ago, on Wednesday, August 16th, a 27-year-old National Guardsman was killed in Afghanistan by an IED. He was a Green Beret and the 11th U.S. serviceman to die in Afghanistan this year. In total, 2,403 U.S. servicemen and women have lost their lives in Afghanistan since 2001, including 50 from Massachusetts. Our thoughts, prayers, and condolences are with all the family members, friends, and loved ones of these men and women whose lives were lost in service to our country. In addition, tens of thousands of Afghan civilians, men, women, and children, have also been killed and wounded over the past 16 years of war in their homeland. Millions more have had to flee their homes. You know, President Trump said war has real costs. He's right. Those costs are measured in lost lives and the daily challenges of recovery for the more than 20,000 troops wounded in Afghanistan, and in thousands of veterans returning home, many with invisible wounds, who struggle to reintegrate back into civilian life and work. It is counted in the hardships faced by military families while their loved ones are deployed and their struggles when they return home. In truth, the war in Afghanistan has shaped the lives of an entire generation of American service members and their families. And every hour, the U.S. taxpayer is paying another $4 million for the war in Afghanistan, which has already cost the American taxpayer more than $780 billion, with another $60 billion awaiting approval in the coming months. The cost of caring for our veterans and paying interest on the debt incurred by the war will add trillions more over the coming decades. And for the record, I am committed to doing absolutely everything we can to support our veterans at every level. On Monday night, President Trump announced his strategy on Afghanistan. It was long on rhetoric, but short on specifics. We only know that he will increase the number of U.S. troops in Afghanistan and keep them there as long as he likes. President Trump did not start this war, but Afghanistan is now his war. The strategy he described Monday night relies almost exclusively on seeking a military solution with no end in sight. President Trump announced a forever war. Press reports indicate that his first escalation will be around 4,000 troops, which would raise our total number of troops to over 12,000. But for 16 years, the U.S. has had between 8,000 and 100,000 troops in Afghanistan, doing everything they could to kill terrorists, defeat enemies, and build and train the Afghan military. President Trump's strategy is simply more of the same. And so, the longest U.S. war is about to get a good deal longer. Who knows how many more U.S. troops he will send to Afghanistan? I keep hearing how everyone, including Secretary of Defense James Mattis, believes that there is no military solution in Afghanistan. Well, if that's true, then why is a military strategy the only one that ever gets fully developed? President Trump's announcement to use all of America's economic and diplomatic tools is also nothing new, and it rings hollow when the president is making every effort to slash funding for the State Department and eliminate key diplomatic positions. President after president, including now President Trump, keeps telling us that just a few more thousand troops and a few hundred more military operations and a few more $1 billion and a few more years will bring this conflict to a successful conclusion. But no one ever defines what success or victory might look like in Afghanistan. What angers me most of all is how the U.S. Congress has failed the American people and our military men and women and their families. Congress has failed to debate and vote on whether to continue the war in Afghanistan. And in my opinion, this is because the Republican leadership lacks the moral and political courage to do so. It is cowardice. More than 6 years after the successful operation in Pakistan to kill Osama bin Laden, and 11 years after the capture of Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, the alleged mastermind of 9/11, this war continues to rage on with no end in sight. Afghanistan remains one of the most corrupt governments in the world. And while I support the current government's stated efforts to tackle this problem, the fact is that billions of U.S. dollars have been wasted and stolen by corrupt Afghan military and government officials. This is money that should have been going to support our troops and our veterans here at home. The Afghan people will never trust their government so long as it remains corrupt and involved in criminal organizations. And there can be no victory on the battlefield, no matter how many troops we send and how many years we remain in Afghanistan, as long as the Afghan people distrust their own military, police, and government. Before allowing President Trump to send thousands more American troops to Afghanistan, the Congress should repeal the outdated 2001 AUMF and debate and vote on whether to escalate once again U.S. military operations in Afghanistan. What we have right now is Congress providing a blank check for an endless war to shore up one of the world's most corrupt governments. That is wrong, and it must change right now before yet one more of our brave troops is asked to sacrifice his or her life in Afghanistan. Now let me be clear. I want this war to end, and I want our troops home. The same old, or kicking the can down the road is not in our nation's interest. Yes, we live in a dangerous world, and yes, there are real threats to our nation and our people. But endless war is not the answer. It has not worked. There are no simple solutions, but expanding our military footprint in Afghanistan would only put more lives at risk and further bankrupt our nation. It is time to change course.